my voice there. And I'd like to welcome everybody to this wonderful presentation by the WAEA with Laura Marie, Cheyenne, Dr. Anne Renee, and Jennifer Griffith. And I am going to open the floor and welcome you all. Welcome, Jessica. Welcome, everybody. We're excited to have you here today. I'm going to hand this over to Cheyenne. And as she, I don't know if she's going to start her presentation. It takes a little bit of time for it to load. We will be having the presentation linked in the chat shortly if you would like to follow along on your own, or we will have it also posted on the Padlet. So with that, I am eager to hand this over to Cheyenne Gillette. Whitney.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me?
I can hear you, but I muted myself.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you for being here this morning. We have a lovely panel of amazing writers and artists, as Becky introduced. So I'm really grateful to be presenting with them. And the purpose of this presentation is to really have some back and forth conversations. We want you all to be asking your questions. Yes, we do have about 15 minutes 20 minutes worked at the end of the presentation for you all to ask your questions, but we highly encourage you to stop us if you have something you want to chat about in between our presentations. You all will be hearing a lot from us, but we want to respect your time. So we will be going through our presentations fairly fast with about 10 to 15 minutes with each of us. And please feel free to write down your questions or, like I said, ask them in the moment. I'm really excited to introduce you to our first presenter, which will be Laura Marie Rivera. And again, here's a picture of all of the wonderful presenters and a reminder to make this presentation what you expect it to be. So if you would like to focus on one topic, make sure you do bring it up to us.
Cheyenne, your presentation has not loaded, at least into my screen. Can you refresh?
Yes. Has anyone else been able to see it yet?
Nope.
No. Okay.
Yeah, try, I think you click the Safari one. That's full screen because we were going and trying to see your Google Doc.
Oh, the Safari one was not, the Safari one was not loaded before. My apologies, everyone. Thank you.
But it is still a black screen. So
you all cannot see that.
oh no, I can see it now.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you again for your patience, everyone. Perfect. So just reiterate, please make this presentation something that you want to hear and something that we can really give back to you all. And with that being said, I would love to pass it off to Laura Marie, and she'll give you a little more information about who she is and a little bit more about her background.
Hi, Cheyenne. Thank you. I'm Laura Marie Rivera, and I just want to make sure everyone can hear me because I'm on two different devices today, just for fun, you know, technology. Thank you, Becky. So we're all here talking, we're all artists, but we're talking about being published authors, and there are so many crossovers. I think it's amazing. And as artists and authors, what we really are is storytellers. So I'm hoping that you all will indulge me a little bit as we kind of look at the world and the world of writing through the micro and macro lens. And there's no one way to be a published artist or author. And so I'm glad that we have some friends on the panel to kind of explain how they got there and get a few tips. And my life has been, I can't say that I've planned it all out. I'm here. I'm glad I'm here. And as it turns out, all of the experiences have led me here, but it wasn't a specific plan. And so I'm just kind of going to go through some of the things and how I ended up where I am. And hopefully some of those will be helpful for you as well. This collage here is some of the stories that I told in my first year working on the neighborhood newspaper. And one of the things I really want to stress is the importance of the stories that we tell. And do you mind going back to the other one? And think of the stories and know that your words have power. And so when you're telling a story and you're choosing someone to highlight, or a work of art, or a subject, or anything else, you are elevating it. So use your power wisely. And I am so proud of these subjects in here, and not surprisingly, a lot of them are art related. And so we can kind of be the champion of others around us as we go. I just want to start in the top corner. There's Coyote Central. Obviously, there's a selfie of me, but there's a small political one as we go across. It was a ribbon cutting at a local art center when Senator Jayapal was right there in the middle. And then we have Henry, the Sasquatch artist, and anyone that is in Seattle or has been to Seattle has probably seen his work. And Preston Singletary, who did one of the new works in front of Climate Pledge Arena, Native American glass artist. And then we have Summer Trissler, runs a music program for children. And that is Kaylee, who had her little free library, and her parents did a big opening. And it was a really small story, but it ended up being very significant, obviously, for her family and her neighbors. And we have a woman that was selling flowers for Ukraine. She has family still there. And I do not consider myself a hard-hitting journalist by any stretch of the imagination, but I tell stories of the people in my neighborhood. And obviously that was a very significant story. And below that, if you can see where it says Ingram Strong, that is the students from one of our Seattle Public Schools high schools in a walkout after a student was killed about 18 months ago. And I don't have to tell you all of them, but I love that we have a Mariners guy in the middle, because he too grew up in the neighborhood a few blocks from where I am. And if you think of a little kid's dreams, whether it's art or baseball or astronaut or anything else, he made it. And it was really cool to see that success and to get to highlight it. And another bucket list item I never would have thought I had was visiting a major league ballpark with a press pass, and with those tickets and that access. And it was a really fun thing. So opportunity is really the theme of all of this. Like I said, I didn't have a plan when I started, and yet here I am. And I was with Gina Davis a couple days ago, and it just really, I can't say that it always comes together necessarily, but it is what it is, just life in general. Will you advance it? So as in anything, you just have to do it. So honestly, the first thing, start writing and keep writing. I'm sure that everyone here has written lessons plans. I'm sure you've all written emails. I'm sure you've written a million things in your life, even when you haven't been thinking about publishing them. And that is exactly what you need to do, is just keep writing and keep practicing. I will say my very first piece grew out of just a reflection, a reflection journaling piece. And later we put it together and added the photos and the captions and turned it into an article. And it was just unplanned, but it worked out. And all I can say is practice, practice, practice. And don't be hard on yourself either. We're all living, we're all learning. And every so often I put out something that I think is pretty great. And other times I look back and think, well, maybe it could have been better, but it is what it is. Just keep writing, keep learning, keep doing, keep growing. And be impeccable with your word, obviously, is not, I didn't make that up, but it's really important when you're talking about writing. And I can't say that I've never made a mistake in something that I've published, but it's always been true to the best of my ability and knowledge. And so I really want to make sure that I am true to myself and true to my subjects, and represent everyone in a fair way. And sometimes you're on the giving end of these things, and sometimes you're on the receiving end. And I truly believe it's important to be fair. And I do think that sometimes that's lost in current journalism. And yes, everyone, when you write an article, you are taking a stance. And even when we're trying to be clear, straight, unbiased. We all bring our biases in everything that we do. And so it's something to be careful of as we are either choosing that subject that we're going to promote, or which quotes we use, or how we present them. And so I do always try to be as fair as possible. And again, we were talking before everyone logged in, we were talking about Chat GPT and some of those things. And obviously, you never, ever want to use someone else's work. That's just not cool. That's not okay. And we've seen in some recent events, even at big universities, and academic integrity, or in this case, journalistic integrity, is really important. And these are your words, you're publishing them, stand by them. And speaking of our words, think of your own personal style and the audience that you're going to write for. I know the presentation is going to get into that a little bit later, but when you're thinking about where you're writing, obviously it's going to sound a little differently in your journal or on Facebook or a blog than it would sound in a newspaper or in a book or even an academic article. And I personally like to write in my own voice. I just know it's not particularly appropriate for some audiences. So I try to balance that depending upon where I'm planning on something being published. And it's just something to be aware of. And it's also something to think about your personal style and how you want to reflect not only your subject, but you're in every piece that you write. And so think about that, because you're talking about a subject, but it also reflects back on you. So just always keep that in mind when we talk about the levels and zooming in and out, to consider where you are in any given piece. And of course, be true to yourself as you do it. And again, you're thinking about what you're saying and who you're saying it about, or subject wise, what it's about, and how you're going to say it, and how that reflects on you. And I am very proud to not only create awareness of the people and subjects that I've profiled, but some of them I've become friends with. And that's not really a goal in any of these things if we're working to inform or explain, but it is kind of a cool thing when you get to know someone. And I'm always excited about these subjects as I learn more about them, and I'm excited for the readers to know more about them as well. And I think certainly for me, when you're doing it right, that's the way it works. So I really enjoy that aspect of telling these stories. Will you go to the next one? And so this is a real zoom out kind of level. So as we're talking about, you guys heard a little bit about my bio, and I once upon a time was an actor, and then I was an educator, and now I work more as an advocate and an arts consultant, and I even ran for office a few years ago. And in everything that I do, you can't take the art out of it. And I'm sure you all find that in your other parts of your life as well. And so when I ran for office, what I didn't know is how many things a candidate needs to do when you run for office, and especially for a small office. And when you're running for governor or whatever else, you obviously have a big team. But when you're running for a small office, you do not have a big team, and you are your team, and you do all those jobs. And one of the early jobs I did is I wanted a logo, because I'm a very visual person, as we all are in this Zoom. And so I created a logo, and this is the first time I've ever done anything like that. And I chose the colors that I wanted, and the design and all of that. And is it perfect? No. But do I love it? Yes. And again, that's not writing, but I promise you these things all go together, because a little bit, well, maybe a week or so into the campaign, I started getting all these requests for interviews. And before you can interview, you have to fill out a questionnaire. And these are not short questionnaires. These are lengthy questionnaires, and they're policy questions. And you have to know these things, and you have to be able to answer these things. And I had no idea how much writing was going to be involved in running for office. And this is really where my writing career started, because I have never been a strong student or a strong writer. And, you know, fast forward till you find about your undiagnosed learning disabilities, but this has been my life. I've always felt behind in that way. And so when I was writing these, I did have a campaign consultant who would, you know, read them over and kind of help me out in places. But they were my words, my thoughts, and I had to create these policies and communicate them. So I was all of those jobs. And as I was writing these policies, and these would be pages and pages long, these documents, and I got working on that. And then I started kind of coming up with blog interviews or articles that went with it. Could be a policy piece, could be in conjunction with something that was happening in the news or in the campaign. And part of it was just explaining what was happening, because it is a fascinating experience to run for office. I learned so many things, and a lot of them are amazing things. And the people that are out there working and helping and getting things done that I promise you've never seen before were really heartwarming to me. And there were some things that I wish I had never also seen or learned, but that's a whole other story. I chose to focus on the positive ones and tell those stories and get them out there. So the blog piece was a way that I could do that, to communicate that out. And so at that time, what I was publishing was about the campaign and about me and about those issues. And so that's the subjects and content. And of course, as artists, we know that visuals really do matter. And so that was the part of the logo. And also photographs really tell a story. And as you can see from my slides, they're an important part of the story to me. And the photo of me with the sign is actually, I think my teenager took that. We ran over to Cary Park, is near my house, one of the pretty spots in Seattle, and took a couple of photos. And it's just important to have visuals with whatever it is you're publishing. And whether when you're working on art plans or highlighting a piece of art, or maybe it's a process photo or the finished product, or maybe it's about how the public interacts with the art once it's finished. There's a million things that can help pull your story along, but they also help grab the interest when you share those stories in whatever format you're sharing them. So I know I don't have to tell you all to think about those visuals, but it is a really important piece of the written word, in my opinion. And also think about your social media presences, because in today's society, that's the way a lot of this works. And where are you going to share your work? And how are you going to share with the people that you know that you are publishing? Because I promise you, your friends, your coworkers, they all want to know what you're up to, and they're not going to read everything you write, and that's totally okay. But you should at least tell them that you've got something out, and maybe a little bit why you're excited about it. And so you share those things, and be sure to share those links, and just let people know what's happening and where they can find your stuff and why you're excited about it. And the bottom, the pink half of this slide, is what I'm currently working on. I'm working on my Doctor of Education, and Cheyenne is also working on hers, and was talking about the amount of reading and the amount of writing that goes with this program. And I promise you, I was not prepared for that either, but here I am and I'm doing it. So I hope you all will take a little bit and just know that if I can do it, I promise that you can as well. Because again, someone that has never, reading and writing have never come easily to me. And I'm currently, that's most of what I do. And of course, I wanted to do it with a bit of logo and all of that good stuff. So I went through and worked it out with I'm fortunate to have two amazing dissertation partners. And we worked it out so that we feel that we are represented in there. And we are looking at motherhood and leadership. And what I was saying about how what we publish matters, it really does. In the scores and scores of leadership material that's out there, mothers are not mentioned. And most of the popular theories are from 40, 50 years ago, and not surprisingly, they're geared toward white males. But certainly women and people of color have been included as we've gotten a little more current, but the only time you hear mothers mentioned is in the motherhood penalty. And there is nothing that we have found that is talking about the skills and experiences that mothers bring into the workplace. So just by choosing that as our topic and just by looking at it, and we're going to be not only writing our dissertation, but we plan on putting it into an actual book for consumption and articles to get it out there, because these are things that people aren't talking about. And again, what it matters, what we're saying. And if 85% of women are or will be mothers, why are they not included? So that is something that I have been looking at since I started writing, and including the stories that haven't been told. Will you advance to the next one? And the main thing I hope you all take away from this is that you can do this. I promise you, if I can, you can. And just some of the tips I would say are mentors and writing buddies. The woman that interviewed me when I was running for office is the editor of our local neighborhood newspaper, and she gave the most fair account of any interview that I did during the campaign. And it's a small newspaper, but I reached out to her after the election, and I did not win that seat on the school board, but it was an amazing experience. But I reached out to her after the election, and just to say, you know, could I take her out to lunch? Could I talk to her? Could I thank her? And she said, yeah, sure. So we did, and we were chatting, and I said, you know, does your newspaper ever need, because there was a new restaurant opening around the corner, and I had run into the owner and we were chatting, and I said, does your newspaper do that? Would you ever need someone to write up something like that? And she said, well, why don't you send me about 800 words, and we'll see. And I said, okay. So I spoke with the owner, the people making the space, the menu, the bartender, and we had some great photos, and I sent that in. And sure enough, she published it. And there I was, now working for the local author. And I'm still doing that 2 years from now and just highlighting those stories. But I need to tell you that the first time I was published in print was actually thank you to Cheyenne and Splatter Magazine. So we have a really amazing tool right here. And if you all are thinking about it, think about what matters to you, the stories that you want to tell, and reach out to Cheyenne, because she is an amazing partner too. She took what I gave her and made it look amazing in the article. And yes, an award-winning magazine too. I meant that. And it was a really great thing to get that going. And I just wanted to say in here, if anybody that attends one of my things is welcome to reach out to me, and I promise you I will give a look at whatever it is you're working on. And I may not be the be all end all, but having another set of eyes, whether it's me or your writing buddy or your partner at home or whoever it is, let some people read it and give you some thoughts, and, you know, keep working and keep trying at it. And you guys can find me on Instagram and X, and really Facebook is my tool of choice. But oh, I didn't even put my LinkedIn because I sometimes forget to check it, but I'm happy to email you anytime, and just go ahead and do it. Even if sometimes you're a little afraid, just go for it. That's it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Laura Marie. And I'm sure we'll have some more questions for you a little later, but I really appreciate you and your time. My name is Cheyenne Whitney. As some of you know me, I am WAEA Splatter Magazine editor and have been for, wow, about 5 years now? Getting close to that. And it's become one of my passion pieces. So I'm just going to go through a couple of quick tips about being published in an art education magazine, not just Splatter Magazine, but a couple of others, and really give you information I wish all writers knew when they were submitting to an art magazine. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat as well. The most important thing is just knowing your options. There are a variety of art magazines you can choose to submit your articles to, and just be familiar with each of them is critical. Not just knowing which one is your favorite, but also knowing what they typically publish so that you can match your submissions to their expectations, which is really, really important. Furthermore, you must be acquainted with that magazine's submission guidelines before you start writing that article. Some magazines have word count expectations, they have formatting expectations, photo expectations. You just want to make sure you are familiar with all of that. And think of it as a rubric. Like, you wouldn't tell your students to read the rubric after. You want to have those expectations set before you start putting in all that work. And then you realize, oops, I've written 600 words more than I need to. So just being familiar with all of that is super great. And all of the presenters here today have created a list of resources that Becky will hand out a little later and that are also on our website for you to take home after this presentation. And a list is included of art magazines that you can submit to, such as the Art Education Journal, Davis School Art Magazine, which we're going to talk about in the next slide, the National Art Education Association's Journal, WAEA Splatter Magazine, and any other state organization's publication. But usually the other state organizations have more of a newsletter than an art magazine. So you really have to do all of your research beforehand. And we've definitely given you a leg up on that research if you go through that link that Becky just put in the chat. And the biggest thing, like Laura said, don't be afraid to reach out to those art magazine editors. I'm always available to throw ideas off of and help you with anything that you are struggling with or just a little anxious about. And I've noticed quite a few of our education magazine editors are the same way. So I have no problem emailing them with any questions, and you should feel free to do that as well. So this is one of my favorite art magazines to submit to, along with Splatter Magazine, of course, both of which we will discuss. These are two of my favorite, not only because WAEA members seem to get published more in Splatter Magazine and Davis's School Art Magazine disproportionately more than other magazines that I've seen. Don't underestimate the importance of getting published. I know Laura said it, and Renee will probably say the same thing. Get your message out to the community. Start with Splatter, start with School Arts Magazine, wherever you need to just get that vision and passion that you all have out into the world. And I absolutely love seeing when people get published in Splatter Magazine or other organizations' magazines, they share it with their admins, their educational communities, and oftentimes those get pushed out to families, they get pushed out to school Facebook groups. It is amazing to see what can come from one publication. All of a sudden, all of your ideas, these amazing things you're doing in the classroom are out in the world so that you get more recognition, and your school gets recognized a little more too. Plus, keep track of all of those publications in your LinkedIn, your CVs, because it really does make a difference. It really, really does. And as far as School Arts Magazine goes, they publicize that they look for full articles, same thing that Splatter does. They want articles on a variety of art topics depending on their theme. They want clip cards. We don't specifically publicize clip cards in Splatter Magazine, but think of them as a really quick activity that substitute teachers can do in one day. So Davis is always looking for clip cards to be submitted, and I think they're actually looking for them right now. So if you'd like to submit those right now, you can. And clip cards typically are 250 words or less. And their articles that they ask, your lesson plan articles, should be 800 words or less. But I've noticed the sweet spot is 500 or 600 words. And that's across the board with any art magazine. So make sure you keep that in mind. 500 to 600 words with lots and lots of photos. Photos are huge. Do not underestimate the importance of submitting those photos with your articles. And let me know if you have any questions while I'm going through these, because I want to make sure you all are comfortable submitting to School Arts Magazine, submitting to Splatter. All of these things are really important. My favorite magazine, but I'm a little biased, is Splatter Magazine. It is for not only WAEA members, but I reach out to other states organizations, and I want to make sure I get a full-rounded just panel of experts in our magazine for you. So we do have themes, and I have publicized the themes for the rest of the year. So that's kind of my newer initiative to make sure you all can start writing early and kind of match up your writing styles or themes with what we've got going on here. We've extended the due date for Splatter Magazine to June 29th, and it's exploring art assessments and grading policies. Now, a lot of you might be thinking my article that I want to do has nothing to do with grading policies, art assessments, and that is perfectly fine. Submit your articles at any time. Go to any of our writers' workshops, which I'm going to talk about next, and we can find a submission or a Splatter Magazine submission that works for you. So I have basically 100% guarantee that I put in all articles that are submitted to me. It may not be right for this one, but I will find a way for it to fit in another theme, another article, another magazine. I work with you to make it perfect. So don't worry about that. Try to work with your themes if you can, but it's not necessary. A new thing we're working on, Becky and I have been chatting, is providing free clock hours for WAEA members for writing for Splatter. That is huge. Not only do you become a published author, but now you can get clock hours for this. I'm so excited. But to get those clock hours, you do have to spend an hour writing your article. And then once a quarter, WAEA will be providing a workshop that you have to attend for about an hour, where you will talk to peers, other people who have submitted their articles. And during that time, you can edit each other's works, you can get feedback. It's just a basic time for us to have like a one-on-one workshop or workshop time. Yeah, so I'm very excited about that. Oh, there we go. We chatted about this before, but use AI ethically. It's been getting a little bit out of hand, not only in magazine submissions, but in schools. We were chatting about this earlier before the workshop started, that some of my peers in my doctorate program are even trying to get away with AI writing. Not that it is necessarily bad, but you have to use it ethically. For example, the principles of originality and authenticity are what drive most magazines on their position against the unethical use of AI. Most don't ban ChatGPT, Grammarly, or any other writing aids. However, they want to make sure that your voice is heard. The use of Grammarly is the most common. I love Grammarly, but it can get too much. I advise you to take precautions to avoid the use of generative text, AI features within Grammarly, or any other writing aid. You should not accept any AI-generated improvements for your work. And if Grammarly suggests modifications to your work beyond basic spelling and grammar edits, do not accept them. It's just so obvious when you use AI. And honestly, I would prefer to hear your voice. That is the beauty of magazines. That's the beauty of being an editor. I get to know each and every person through their writing. If I'm talking or reading an AI, it's just not the same, and you can tell. Even if you're feeding it your prior writing, it's just not quite the same. So do your best to make sure we use that ethically. This is probably the most, I wouldn't say the most important thing to keep in mind, but it's the most ignored. by people who are trying to submit anything to a magazine. Lots and lots of photos are preferred. I would say 4 to 6 images are the minimum that should be submitted with an article. That gives a photo editor, magazine editor, lots of room to edit and add things in as they go, which is much preferred and much appreciated. So 4 to 6 photos minimum, and make sure if student faces are visible, you have that written permission from students' guardians. Yeah, Austin, please ask away.
Hi, good to be here with everybody this morning. With pictures that have kids and maybe for some reason you weren't able to obtain permission from parents and guardians, what is your sense from magazines on I've seen putting like a sticker in front of kids' faces or blurring it out, or any opinion on those kinds of things?
Personally, I prefer to get photos of students and their artworks from behind. Like if they're working, can you get a photo of just the back of their head? Because that is acceptable with their artwork. Sometimes you pre-took these photos and you weren't really thinking. You can put stickers over their faces, their heads, and that is totally fine and accepted. However, you will not see that a lot in some of the larger magazines like Davis. I don't think they would ever put stickers over the faces. You have to be really clear with the guidelines before you read that. But Splatter, we understand, we're a smaller magazine, so that is typically pretty okay.
Thanks.
And then the other thing we also forget, and I do as an editor sometimes, is properly label and cite your photos. I don't know who that student is. I don't know the name of their artwork, so just properly giving them those references is great. And photos submitted with articles should never be submitted or embedded in the Word document. If it is important with your process, like you want this photo with a certain part of your article, that is fine, but you need to also submit it as a PDF separately or JPEG separately. It is really hard to get those photos out of those Word documents, and they degrade. They definitely degrade. So make sure you're checking those guidelines from your magazine on what is accepted, because I will tell you, Davis and other magazines, they will not accept anything that is embedded in a Word document. And then finally, for me, I humbly and kindly ask you to attend Splatter's Writer Workshop, which is next Saturday. So Becky and I will be there to work one-on-one with you, along with a couple of other people. This is where you're going to earn your clock hours. So if you spend this week writing your articles for Splatter, the submission is June 29th, I believe. We wrote it down I believe it's June 29th. Write your article now, get it out of the way, and then show up next Saturday. You can get your clock hours. It is a great way to just build community and build up your confidence as a writer. Because I will tell you, before I became Splatter's magazine editor, I was so afraid of submitting my work. And now it's no big deal because I've been working with so many great people. So just keep that in mind. I am always available to answer questions, and so is anyone in this room, I bet. So I'm going to go ahead. I've taken up enough of your time. I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to the lovely Dr. Anne Renee Joseph.
Thank you, Cheyenne, and thank you, Laura Marie. Wow, I've learned a lot, and I'm going to try to add on to what folks have already said. That's the beauty of this collaborative presentation, and welcome everyone who's here, and thank you WAEA and Becky and Cheyenne for the opportunity to present about becoming a published author. So my presentation really picks up on both what Laura Marie and Cheyenne have said. I have 15 slides, so I'm going to be talking fast, but the slides are pretty specific with the detailed points, and I know this PowerPoint will be available later on, and lots of images here. So I'm going to take you through my story and my voice and focus on why publish. And so my purpose was, and my mission it was mission driven. I wanted to make more arts happen. And having served then for 34 years before writing a dissertation and completing my doctorate, what I knew is that there just wasn't any empirical evidence about arts education. And so when districts were cutting arts education, they just say, it's just kind of fluff. Even though our state says we are a core academic subject area and very integral, as we all know, to the development of a whole child. You take our piece out of reading, writing, math, science, social studies, the arts, and health and fitness. If you take our piece out, there is not a whole child. So my purpose was to provide empirical evidence via research to make more arts happen for all learners. And how was I going to do that? Through visionary leadership, advocacy, and action. And for those of you who knew my career at OSPI, I had to have a purpose there too, because there are so many things that people ask you to do. So just like in a job, in publishing, I wanted to have a focus. Everything that I was going to do was going to be about visionary leadership, advocacy, and action, because that's what I loved doing. My doctoral degree is in educational leadership, and I love leadership as much as I love the arts. And what I knew after 34 years in the field and at the state level and at district leadership as well, is that without vision and leadership, no matter what I did, it wasn't going to happen. It was going to happen for a while, but there wouldn't be any legacy. So to publish is to make known. Everything that we did at OSPI is still active and making a difference and being adaptable to everyone. Everything that I was going to create was going to be the same thing. So you see here in front of you, my dissertation, it's a big one, 420 pages before a lot of other stuff, a lifetime of learning. And if you do everything on those pages, you will be able to scientifically prove that arts and academic achievement are for real. If you want to replicate that study, 420 pages, it tells you exactly how to do it, and you can do it. To publish is to make known. We don't know who said that, but that's what was told to me at Seattle Pacific University. And so in that process of visionary leadership, advocacy, and action, what was my intention going to be? How was it going to happen, my process? Publications and timeline, and how was it going to be accessible after I was done and not just left on the shelf? I utilized the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People by Stephen Covey, and many of you may have heard of him or you may not, but in 1990 when I became a principal, that was the cutting edge book, and I highly recommend it. And then of course, in alignment with my personal mission. And what was that? I'm in the business of enhancing lives via the arts, learning, and leadership. And many of you have heard me say that. So how would everything that I published be that way? I'm going to turn my camera off, but you'll be able to hear my voice because I'm bothering myself. Okay, now you can just hear my voice. You see me here at a WAEA conference sharing my research. As soon as I got my dissertation, as soon as I graduated in 2013, I was at the Washington Art Education Association sharing my research and taking questions. And then I shared how dance, music, theater, and visual arts at the time, and media arts, and here are some visual art samples from my study, how all of the arts were shown to create academic achievement in my study. Next. And here I am on the shelf. So what you want to do is make sure that you're celebrating along the way. So here's my dissertation on the shelf in the Seattle Pacific University Library. If anybody asks you, you have the data to show them and you have the proof. And here I am again. They moved me down a little ways, and here I am again up close and personal. And of course, I do take a lot of hits from my colleagues and cohorts that, my goodness, you took up room for 3 of us with your dissertation, but there it is. You can find me. But how do you get from the shelf to where people can actually read your dissertation? And what does that mean? Well, after receiving my doctorate, it took me another year before I actually published, and that was part of the vision. And here's the link for those of you, if you want to download it. It's a big download. But as of yesterday, my dissertation has been downloaded 1,470 times in the Seattle Pacific University Digital Commons database. So there's a little bit of data. Of course, you would expect that from me as your research and knowledge representative, that I would give you a little bit of data and not just say this and this and this. So there's the data. And when I was working on publishing my dissertation, the Seattle Digital Commons had not started yet. It didn't start until 2015, a couple years after I finished my dissertation. What's interesting is in the year 2014, my cohort were 13 people. My cohort just, finished their dissertations and that was it. Not very many of them went on to publish. I wanted to publish mine. It took me another year. I know you've heard the other speakers talking about that. It takes practice, it takes polish, and it's never done. Like this morning, I was working on this presentation up early, just adding a few more things that I dreamt about in my sleep, because this presentation for all of you is now published as well. Next. We're going to go through the next couple of slides pretty fast, but you can see that I did eventually publish in ProQuest. It was about a year after I graduated, and there's the number. I have an official number. I'm officially copywritten, and you've heard other people talk about not taking other people's work and making it your own. And how would we know? Once it goes on the web, you don't know, but I definitely, this is a disclaimer for all of you, I'm not using any artificial intelligence, and you probably know that from the surveys that we've been using, because I don't want the artificial intelligence to have my voice. I've spent 23 years developing my voice, my story, my purpose, the way that I write, which is very different, in my opinion, from the way that other people write. I like my writing. I enjoy reading my writing. I enjoy reading my scientific writing. It's fun to read. I don't use words that people can't understand. I use words that people can understand and that they can make a part of themselves, and that maybe I'll throw in a big word now and then just so people will stop and maybe look it up. But I want what I'm writing about to speak to you. So you see this one image in the bottom corner here. It's very colorful and it's a Wordle, and that's just my abstract of 250 words for my dissertation. But you can see that arts is the focus even in the abstract. How do you know that what you're writing is really what you're writing about? Check it out. Check it out artistically. And so you can see how important it is to stay on message and be in alignment with what you want to be writing about. I want people to know me about writing about more arts. More arts is my answer to everything, only after prayer. And many of you have heard me say that. And I'm all about visionary leadership, advocacy, and action. And I'm in the business of enhancing lives via the arts, learning, and leadership. And that's what I write about. And I want to make sure that people know that arts can be proven empirically, they can be proven qualitatively, they can be proven mixing and matching that, and there's great correlation. In other words, more arts makes you smarter. The end. No changes, erases, period, kiss. Next. And so how do you know, again, that you have access? Well, if people are going to the SPU website, they are going to the Arts Ed Search website in the Arts Education Partnership. And so I was surprised. This is their 2023 report, and there it is. My little dissertation format, Cheyenne talked about that. When you're going to publish for a specific publication, you have to fill in their form and follow their rules and be peer reviewed, and it takes about a year. So as soon as my dissertation was published, I filled out the Arts Ed Search form, and it took another year for it to be peer reviewed, and then they had it online in 2015. And last year it got 1,398 views. It was in the top 5. I'm so happy about this. I discovered it quite by accident, just when looking up my dissertation. There it is. There were 297 studies in that Arts Ed Search in 2023. I don't know how many there are now, but last year I was in the top 5. Hooray! Next. So people are using it. Where else would people go to find my dissertation? Well, the National Dance Education Organization has a research database called DELREADY, Dance Education Literature and Research Descriptive Index. Again, it takes about a year. So in 2014, I submitted my full dissertation to them, and they found the dance piece because this is really about dance. However, they decided to publish the whole dissertation, which proved, you'll see in the next slide, to be very advantageous. Also, when my dissertation was significantly shortened for the International Dialogues on Education publication, again, something that Cheyenne has mentioned, you know, that's a 6,000 to 8,000 word submission. They, DELREADY picked that up too and published the whole piece because the dance educators had picked it up. Next. And here you see the International Dialogues on Education, which I just mentioned to you. So when, again, what's another peer-reviewed article where people are going to go not just statewide or nationally, but internationally? How could I have a broader scope for my dissertation? Because really, what do I want to do? I want to make more arts happen around the world. What's wonderful about this is this was an invitation to present at the Seattle Pacific University International Symposium, where 24 countries were represented in person in 2019. And what was wonderful after that is the editors of the International Dialogues on Education Journal invited all of the participants to submit an article for possible consideration. The other wonderful thing is that my doctoral advisor was a part of that group and also in part of inviting those of us to present. And I've shared this with many of you before. Initially, I wanted the title of my dissertation to be Arts and Academic Achievement, which is very broad. So that was nixed at Seattle Pacific University in favor of a very narrow dissertation title, The Effects of Creative Dramatics on Vocabulary Achievement of Fourth Grade Students in a Language Arts Classroom and Empirical Study. And you don't have to memorize that, but I have. Anyway, I got to have my title in this journal, Arts and Academic Achievement, for my significantly shortened dissertation. And after it was published in this journal, of which I've had 2 more presentations and 2 more publications, next, it was published in ERIC into the database where people go to find research. And so now that publication is there as well. And I don't have a picture of the ERIC, but I just wanted you to know that it is also there. The next publication for work at OSPI was for our classroom-based performance assessments. And I have a chapter in a huge 2-volume version, and you see the 2 volumes there, on arts assessments across the nation and the world. And again, as we talk about being an author, I love to save these wonderful name tags that we get when we go to a conference to present our work, and it says we are an author. Of course, here are the links for you, and this is Washington State, and here's a little bit of the introduction. And you can find me on page 177 in the Blue Book. Next. I'm going to go through these really quickly. These are university presentations, and this was at a National Dance Education Conference. My dissertation was under the title of Somatics and Academic Achievement. And this, you can see the venue. That was a dream come true. And to the left side of me was an entire wall of mirrors. And you can see me dancing in the bottom portion picture there with the group of participants, and we could see ourselves in the mirrors. And I had a sound person with me, everything that I had dreamed of when you talk about visionary leadership, advocacy, and action. And then I was cited in one of the keynote speakers' presentations there, and you can see where she put somatics and academic achievement. Next. Going to keep going. So at Seattle Pacific University, you can see me presenting here. You can see another Wordle where you can see the big words of arts education there. And then, of course, we know that arts is also therapy. All right, visionary leadership, advocacy, and action. Well, during COVID, the arts saved my life. And the Arts Education Partnership asked me to write about that. Next. And before we get to that piece, where else were they going to find my dissertation? Again, here's another surprise. The Department of Education, the United States Department of Education, went to the Arts Education Partnership database and found my dissertation, which is a Tier 1 study, strong evidence backed by an experimental design or randomized controlled trial, which is what my dissertation was. Tier 1 study is considered the gold standard. And so you find me now in the education document on the elementary and secondary education mapping opportunities for the arts and tiers of evidence. Keep going. Next. Here is the artistic therapeutic actions. We know that art is therapy, and there's an article about it. People ask you to write about it. What do we want to say? Arts is everything. Next. I'm going to go through these last ones really quickly. And of course, Splatter Magazine is my greatest love. And I'm writing 1 or 2 articles as one of your members of, I'm the Research and Knowledge Division representative and loving that. I also wrote as a retired rep, but what an opportunity. And Splatter editor Cynthia Gelb, when I was done with my dissertation, said, I need you to start writing for Splatter. And I said, I've never written for a magazine. And she said, please do. And that was the beginning. And of course, Cheyenne Gillette Whitney, one of our presenters today, has asked me to continue to write. And we've done our 6 surveys. And I just want to say Splatter Magazine is the end all. And here you can see some articles and even a note from our beloved Gail Riley when she was just telling me thank you. Keep going. Next. I'm going to go through these last ones really quickly. This is work from the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, and everything written was about how to make more arts happen forever. These are the links. And you see me also presenting nationally and internationally. And it's just nice to get your doctorate. So that's just for Cheyenne and Laura Marie coming up. I put that down there. You will be an alumni someday. So there's your vision. There's my little vision there, being an alumni in the bottom right-hand corner at Seattle Pacific University. Next. Couple more. Find articles by me in Splatter Magazine in the archives. And this again was a dream come true in 2015. We practiced some of my treatments through dance, music, theater, and visual arts at the WAEA Fall Conference in 2015. And in my lesson plan, I said to be on the cover of Splatter Magazine, and Cynthia did that. So there's the image. There's the dream come true. Next. And continue to make your art no matter what. And writing is an art. Presenting is an art. The purpose now is to provide empirical and anecdotal evidence like you and I see every single day in our teaching and learning. We see how arts makes a difference, arts and academic achievement, and how do we showcase that in everything that we say, write, and do, learning by doing, active learning, and in our writing and in our reporting. Next. Thank you. And I'm going to pass this on now to Jennifer.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm just going to I'm coming to you from the Sequani land. It's a land acknowledgement. The Spokane River is the water source. It goes into the belly of the Pacific, into the Columbia River. And I just wanted to state that before I start. Thank you I'm really grateful to be here and in the presence of some amazing women. So I'm just going to, there's a lot of facets that make me up. And one of them is, I guess, talking to children through visual arts. So let's be real, right? But there's then the reality of it. This has been a creative process of mine for over 20 years, and it kind of reminds me of owning a restaurant. It's really exciting, right? It's really exciting to write an illustrated children's book. It's really exciting to own a restaurant. But when that dream becomes a reality and the work gets heavy, that burning flame tends to sometimes go out. So I'm an educator. We hear a lot of why in education and being in the classroom because of getting through those challenges. And so I'm going to talk to you about my why. and how it kind of happened, and how I ended up with illustrating and writing a book for ages 8 to adult. So I have a really kind of a weird metaphor. I got a tattoo in 1979. I was like 10 years old. Well, I was a little older than that. Anyway, I had to hide it. I had to be like, I couldn't be open about it, right? And so now tattoos are this mainstream. Everyone has them. You don't have to hide it to get a job. And I feel like the same things happen with children's books. 30 years ago, it was this kind of thing to be a children's book author. And now it's way more mainstream. So it's changed. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So I'm just going to kind of start with my values. That first slide, actually, I wanted to share. The artwork said, be optimistic. Optimism makes the world a better place to live in. And then share your luck with others, and others will share their fortune with you too. This will help you live in harmony with others. Take care of your children. They will lead the tribe when they grow up. So make sure they grow up properly. That was on the vision and kind of my story that I'm telling in each of my pieces. So know what you believe. I recall many hours as a young girl spent in a dry creek bed in Florida searching for shark's teeth. I found hundreds, assorted sizes and colors, and then I just started collecting them. As I grew older, more complex thoughts sparked my curiosity to question, how did these shark's teeth get there? How does my existence play a part in these shark's teeth? So I started to develop thoughts on the human relationship to our natural world. I found it quite fascinating and beautiful, like a gift. So every time I discovered a new tooth, it was exciting. It was just as exciting as the tooth before. And I reacted as if it was a new and precious gift, even though it was the same shark's tooth or different shark's tooth. So my work in my books tie in with the important teachings of Indigenous knowledge systems, which is that the most important is to know our unique gift and how to use it in the world. Individuality is cherished and nurtured because for the whole to flourish, each of us must be strong in who we are and carry our gifts with conviction so they can be shared with others. This is not only true as human species, but also for the 6 million other species that are on this planet. So that inspired the image above. There's a lot of things going on. These images are arts education based, so they're going to have complementary colors. They're going to involve the color wheel. There's a Banksy kind of inference on the left-hand side. If you all know that image, it's hope. And then there's my parts of, I added in with Great Pyrenees and things like that. Anyway, it says, show kindness to everything around you, people as well as animals. Take responsibility for your own actions and think before you act. So that's my why. I want to take that Indigenous knowledge systems, and my question is, can I teach that through storytelling? And I say yes. So here we're just learning more. The image with the complementary colors, the blue and orange right there says, do not destroy nature. Nature is a part of us, not for us to take whatever we want from it. Next, please. So it's okay to be a beginner. We all started somewhere. And I find this to be a daily life lesson. We say sorry a lot, or we take responsibility for something that we shouldn't have. And I just really, this feels really important to me because there's a vulnerability and an accessibility to expressing yourself. And to know that we were all in the same place at the same time in the very beginning really means a lot to me. And there's a patience and a grace that goes with that. I encourage you to put that into your work. And that's how I did. And that's why it took a long time. This is processes that have happened over 15 years. So one of the things that helped me is I have my very first visual art piece from the Nelson Atkins Museum in Kansas City, where I'm from. It's a blob of wax. We were learning batik. I'm not sure if anyone knows that medium, but then there were smaller blobs of wax, and then one red color dyed in the background. But I keep it because I want to remember the feeling of accomplishment over a drop of wax. There's a movie called My Kid Could Paint That, or Everyone Can Illustrate. This is an interesting thing. Everyone can illustrate and write a children's book now because AI will draw it for you, as if, quote, drawing is the only challenge to writing or illustrating a children's book. Next, please. I will read to you those quotes on that one. It's one of my favorite pages. Know yourself, believe in yourself, and follow your own principles. Be wholesome, be strong physically as well as mentally and emotionally. A strong person is strong in every sector. That's the previous page. So getting into some facts, right? Because there's just the black and white, the highest contrast of publishing or expressing yourself however you do that. There's a professional side to it, especially with kind of working. I tend to be personally more of an innocent, childlike personality. And I've kind of learned how to balance that to come out, because I need to express myself in a way that people will consider my information to be valid. And so kind of in that research and just the professionalism of that. So, and ask for help. So I have a friend that I'll before an interview or before going into talking to someone about if I need their investment or if I'm looking for their input, I'll text a picture of myself to my friend and be like, am I put all together okay? Because my put together in front of the mirror might not be a professional put together for asking for large sums of money or putting my book out. Okay. So just the facts. If you write and you write a story and you send it into a publisher, you will not have a say in your illustrations. So it's very separate in the publishing world. If you illustrate a book, you are almost always asked after the book is written, then that publisher has a cache of illustrations and all these different things that you can, that publishing company will hold. And so let's say they get a story in and then they'll go and they'll try and match that. So you don't have that, I guess, ability to make those choices with the larger publishing. Self-publishing, you have more control of your content, but you are financially responsible almost all of the time. And then there's so many small publishers out there. And I did give you a list in the resources. It really depends on what you're interested in. For example, my mentor, one of my mentors is Ingrid Hess, and she wrote on fair trade and Haiti. And so you can get really creative. So she went to that organization and they published her book. So it was to connect readers of the magnificent art and how fair trade pays artists a fair price for their work. So she is paralleling awareness about contemporary issues with a story to an audience that is open to hearing new ways of thinking and changing mindsets. So Indigenous knowledge systems, which is my background to my book, is the values represented on a new way of thinking, and awareness through visual art is open for exploration. So, for example, my connection is the People's Center in Arlee, Montana. And that's who I worked with because I wanted to be respectful to my audiences. That's on kind of the next slide. So we'll just move on to that one. That was a lot of information, and I've just got a really quick guide because there is so much information out there. If you are interested in publishing a children's book, are you more interested in the writing side? Are you more interested in the illustration side? But this kind of helps you with questions. Are you reaching child readers? Is that a question you want to do? Do you just want to be a published children's book author? Sometimes just the stereotype of that, just want to publish something. That's okay. Do you want to just create for friends and family? Maybe you have a special animal or something that you have that you want to share with that friends and family. Do you want to educate? Do you want to entertain? Do you want to learn? You know, is it for learning? Is it for financial gain? Or is it some others? And I will let you know that my reason for publishing was to educate and to reach readers, so children and adult. On the bottom left, there's sorry, there's questions coming in, and I won't be able to read the chat and do that. So thank you for your patience. I'll try and finish up so we can get to those questions. There's a link down the bottom. It's called Hannah Holt's Publishing Numbers. It's a great resource, a great website. She's an established children's book author, and she really goes into, if you self-publish, let's say you have $5,000, what do you need to do other than, you know, because say you needed 10,000, but that 5,000, you're going to do your social media postings, you're going to do your marketing, or do you have the money to pay someone to do that for you? She just kind of helps you think about all of it. Next slide, please. So I just want to tell you there's stuff out there. You can write a children's book in 7 days. Day 1, you can identify your why. Day 2, decide on a message. Day 3, create a main character. Day 4, present a problem. Day 5, develop roadblocks. Day 6, pick a satisfying ending. And day 7, craft your story. But great work takes time, and it takes hustle. And it takes knowing your audience and knowing why you're doing it. But if you are ready to go, then apply for things, because the bottom line is it's a job. And so for me to do that job, I needed to take myself out of life for a little bit. I had the opportunity to do that, and I did a residency. There's a list of residencies and fellowships all over the world. There's thousands. Some are a week long, some are 2 weeks long, but it's just that time to focus on your work and your writing. And then I also wrote to pitch ideas. Maybe your idea has to do with community building and you want to go to your city council. Find those groups, community tribal nations, arts commissions, school districts. We don't know what we don't know. And a lot of times just putting, you know, I was at another panel one time and someone asked the question, how do you start? How do you start? And the answer was, you just show up. You show up. So you come to this workshop, you go to next week's workshop. And I tell you what I did is I said Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 5 to 7:30, I'm in my studio and I'm working. And that means I said no to things that came up. And so your contribution matters. Don't forget that. What you have to offer the world is not in the world yet. So do it. You are giving back to the world by putting your world in that head, putting it out into the world. You are giving back. You are giving to your community, giving to your world that you're in right now, all these intersections and these people that we're together with. And then lastly, no matter how hard you try, someone will hate your work. It's really self-explanatory, and rejection has laid me flat, horizontal, on the ground many times. But there is an adage that when a door closes, another opens. And I can't tell you how much I believe in that. I truly do. And so sometimes that door closing is your door, and it's really hard. But sometimes that door opening is your door again, and it does happen. And so I just encourage you all to reach out to me if you need anything, to connect with others, and to show up. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Jennifer. And thank you so much, Anne Renee and Laura Marie, We really, really appreciate you all so much for taking your time out to answer our questions. Now, I know we don't have too much time, but I do want to open up the floor to all of you to see if you have any further questions. I know Hip had a couple questions that I'd love for us to touch upon, but please, if you have any, now is the time. Jennifer, would you like to handle Hip's questions in the chat?
Yeah, let me go there. Okay. How will I handle formatting and layout for different devices? Okay. So, I think, let's see. Yeah, go ahead. We can just talk about it. So I do everything. I mean, that's the thing. I'm an arts educator, so I do batik, I paint, oils, acrylics, I do watercolor, I do colored pencils. I will draw on a sketchbook and then I'll take it to maybe Canva a little bit and then I'll play it out. I'll collage and then I'll put it onto the wall and then I'll draw it. So yeah, all kinds of stuff.
So, thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Renee and everybody. It's amazing to listen to all of your experience, and it's so rich. And I'm sure I can continue learning a lot from all of you. My question that relate to my process that I'm debating. Right? Either should I do an ebook so I don't have to like print a hard copy and then try to ship it and send it, and so Splatter magazine. Do you have both published in both form, like have like an ebook and the hard copy, or just ebook?
We have access to both, and we usually do for the fall conference always a hard copy. So they do have differing features. So when you're building the book, you want to make sure that you're very clear on, are you going to publish this as a hard copy? You're going to publish it online? Because I'll start adding in some interactive components that you won't have with the hard copy. But InDesign is perfect for building out children's books too, not just magazines. It's really a versatile program that can be used for publish online and hard copy as well.
So do you use InDesign, or do you?
Yes, we do.
I don't use digital, so mine is by hand, and then it's put into digital format. So I think, and two, for me, I do what is most accessible and easiest at the moment. So e format is really easy, quick, and publishes right away. So it's kind of, what are your needs? You know, what are your needs and what do you want for you? And that's kind of going back to that beginning, follow your desires and your needs, because once you get further on into the process, a lot of people will start to tell you what they think is better. So you have to kind of stay true to what you believe in.
And just to go off that question, Jennifer, once you are done making your hand drawings and making it beautiful, do you put it into InDesign, or what program are you using?
I actually take my originals to the publisher.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay.
Because I work with because I self-publish. Because I don't like to follow the rules. Bottom line, I don't know. Say there.
No, I love your answers. I think that's amazing. Austin, I know you've had your hand up for a while.
Thanks. I think Renee's presentation may have answered my question, but I just wanted to ask again to be clear on. So I got a piece published with Splatter. Thank you. And my question is, can I take that same article and then offer it to somebody else to see if it can be published in a different publication as well? How does that kind of thing work?
It depends. They might say there are some publications that say you have to submit something that has not been published anywhere else and you have no intention of publishing it anywhere else. And others where you can say, like, I think with Splatter, I have offered articles. I've asked Cheyenne if I could post this somewhere else and rewrite it, and she's always given me permission. And so it just, like, I'll take pieces of it and post it on my LinkedIn. It just depends, but you need to go back to the editor. There are many that say no. Nope, we own it. Now that you gave it to us, we own it. So you just have to check with them. And if they say no, then write something else for them. At least you got their attention.
So case by case
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, well, I was going to say nothing is paid. This is paid. When you present for WAEA, like today, each one of us is going to get $25. That's pretty awesome. You know, that's something. But most of the time, you have to pay to have somebody look at your work, and that there's no guarantee. So that's a whole nother story. And you can certainly call me up, Austin, and I'll tell you, I took a class at SPU for $750. It was a whole day class along the lines of your question. My husband paid for it. It was after I graduated on how to be a published author. And the professor went through everything with us. And then he looked out at us and said, and probably most of you will never be published. And your dissertation might be good for 3 articles. So he was like really hopeful. And I thought, whenever they do that to me, I think, well, I'm going to be the 0.001%, you know? And my dissertation, my advisor has said just last winter, God bless him, and he gave me a hard time. Most advisors do, they're supposed to. And he said out of his heart, I have to say, Anne Renee continues to present on her dissertation, and she continues to reinvent it for where it needs to go to make more arts happen. That was out of his heart. He's 84 years old, but boy, did he give me a hard time when he was 59. He's watched the evolution and how it's made more arts happen in his heart. So that's what I want. What's your why? When you have that why, that's your purpose, that's your mission, that's your, I want to say, almost anointing. Like, I think Cheyenne is anointed to be an editor. I think God created her to be an editor. She is so amazing. Like, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't want to do it. She loves it. And what is your, that anointing, that gift that you have that you can give to the world to make more of what you want to make happen. I just want to make more arts happen. You all make more arts happen. And I know if more arts happens, the world's going to be a better place. Thank you to all of you. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, and maybe just a quick clarification. So I saw that the Lifelong Learning Group had a call for submissions, and I felt that it was an article that would be applicable to what they were asking for as well. So I would ask Cheyenne first if I can, and then also ask them if they're okay that it's been published someplace else. So just ask everybody that's involved.
Yeah, and the answer is going to be 2 things, yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
And
Great,
I'd also
thanks.
like to add, a lot of the time you'll see that information on their website. I don't think Splatter specifically states it anywhere, but a lot of the larger magazines will always have that little blurb that they either allow it or don't allow it.
You might have to give it a different title. And you saw that during my presentation. I continued to give it different titles, and then there was a disclaimer. And I also got permission from the IDE to do a significantly shortened version of my dissertation because they wanted it. But that was like almost writing my dissertation again.
Mhm.
That was tough. That was good. Hard work.
Do you design the the ebook separately and then redesign another one for the hard copy, or you kind of using one format for both?
Are you directing that question to me or Jennifer?
I mean, anybody, but I think because you're working with the Splatter magazine.
Yeah, so that is kind of it kind of works both ways. So automatically I can usually just transfer it over to a manual publication. I always start with the digital publication and then take those features out. So if you just toggle basically the toolbox, it will allow you to do that pretty easily. And if you try to let's say if you try to publish it online or publish it manually, it will give you all of the things that are wrong or are missing before it allows you to do that. So it'll tell you what to go back to and change before that's needed. And YouTube has been amazing. Don't get me wrong. I've been using InDesign for 10 plus years now, and I'm constantly learning and teaching myself new things. And YouTube is amazing for that.
Thank you.
Just to tag on to that, to reiterate what Cheyenne just said, when you're writing though, if it's intended for digital, that's different writing than for hard copy, because when I write for a website, there's links and there's different ways that you have people visualize things, and there's videos, and there's almost shortened attention spans a little bit more on digital, to where when it's hard copy, you can get a little bit more. So you kind of have to rewrite a little when it comes to like, oh, I made this for digital. You can't just, as we know, you can't just print out a website and expect it to read like a book. So it is slightly different writing, which I think we should applaud Cheyenne for doing once a year for us. Thank you very much. I wish we had the funding to do hard copies every year, which could be a whole nother discussion about publishing, is how do you get the funding to be able to publish hard copies in this digital age, which is kind of interesting. And Jennifer, just question, when you say you take it to the publisher, have you ever gone directly to Amazon or directly to like the online publisher? Because I know you can do that with certain ebooks. So like, here's what I wrote. Here are the pages. Just, can you publish this as a book? Have you done that? Is that what you did with your children's book? No?
I haven't, because I worked with the tribal members of the Blackfoot. I wanted it to be like with my audience. I wanted the people that I was writing the book for, the tribal members, to be a part of that publishing. But what do I risk? I risk the marketing. You kind of go back to my why. I'm not going to get the amount of people that are going to find out about my book if I go that route. The marketing is going to be more difficult. I'm going to have to take a harder route to make sure I get that marketing. It's just kind of like, I know my consequences for that. And there's just a lot of, that's me individually. There's a lot of people out there that just really have an idea, and it's really easy for them to just put it into a format for Amazon and get it out there, because it's that day 1 through 7. You've got your why, you've got your message, you've got a problem, and then someone's bullying, and then you fix it. So there's a very, so not me, that's not me, but yes, it's absolutely attainable and very, quicker. It's much quicker.
Awesome. Thank you. I want to honor everybody's time today. Laura Marie in the chat had to run because of her daughter's dance recital, and I think her son graduated yesterday. So I want to honor everyone for being here today and sharing the space with us. I did put the WAEA clock hour request form into the chat. If you need it emailed to you specifically, please let me know. and I will shoot you an email with it. Again, the resources are on the website. This recording will also be on the website. I'm going to stop the recording right now so I don't forget, and I would